Hi, I'm Eric Gadby, and I have been an enthusiast for all things nautical and aerospace since the age of 10. I served for 22 years in the U.S. Submarine Force and have been supporting it for the last 15 years since retiring. Join me as I pursue my passion for first-person context for ships, aircraft, and historic sites that have shaped our world, as well as some that are off the beaten path. Welcome to Roy, Utah, just north of Salt Lake City and home to Hill Air Force Base and the Hill Aerospace Museum. This is part 4 of a personally guided tour of the museum with Lieutenant Colonel Mark Hasara. U.S. Air Force retired, call sign Sluggo. Mark is a former KC-135 pilot, the author of the best-selling book Tanker Pilot, Lessons from the Cockpit, public speaker, host of the Lessons from the Cockpit show on YouTube, and is a small business owner of Wall Pilot, custom aviation graphics. In addition to all of these, Mark is a great friend and mentor.
See, I've got one helicopter ride at night on NVGs, and it wasn't in any of these. We had these at Kadena when I first got there, the CH-3. But then about halfway through my tour, we got MH-60s. But this was the helicopter that was picking guys up out of the
Out of the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Sending
is the one that was picking them up.
Sending the PJ down through the canopy.
It doesn't have the winch. The Pave over there does. We'll go see that here in a second. But they had a big winch, you know, that was attached to the helo right here, that they'd lower down, you know, and pick up guys out of these things. Of course, they had the A1 Skyraider, which we'll look at here in a few minutes, that would follow them in and everything like that. But this was the helicopter that, when it was time to pick guys up out of the jungles of Southeast Asia, this was the one they did it with. You know, the little Bell Sioux that was flying during the North Korean War.
The Flying Banana.
The Flying Banana. I don't know a whole lot about this one, man. I really don't. Looks like somebody hit a bird or something like that.
One of my coworkers that I work with at Keyport, he was a CH-53 pilot. So,
you know what? This is an amazing helicopter, and I'm glad to see that they've got the rotor blades back on it. Okay, look at, show all your subscribers. Look how big the rotor diameter is on this thing, right? I mean, it's freaking huge. Okay, but this airplane, this helicopter is the one that I'm most familiar with. Oh, here's the winch. Now, when we went through survival school, we actually got a helicopter ride. We got picked up, okay? This was the winch that they used. It was at Fairchild Air Force Base.
Yeah, Spokane.
We went through SERE training, and they'd drop this thing down to us and winch us up, you know, and we'd go back to base in the helo, which was the very first time I'd ever been in a helicopter. All right, you can see the door gun, the minigun, but that's the winch that they would use. Now, there's a famous story from Desert Storm. Boots Jones, F-14 crew member, I think he was a pilot, got shot down and was running around out in the desert. I came in to fly, my crew came in to fly, and D. Wright, the mission planning cell guy, goes, he's at the top of the stairs, he goes, "Are you coming in to fly?" "Yeah, D. Wright, we're coming in to fly." "Your mission's canceled, go to mission planning and wait for me there." I'm like, "D. Wright, what's going on?" He goes, "Go to mission planning, I'll tell you when you get there. I don't have time to explain." I went, "Oh, this is odd." And I go to mission planning, and I sit down, and it's Dan Favorite from Beale and his crew, Heidi Hernandez from Wordsmith and her crew, and my crew. And then a few minutes later, a Kansas Guard crew, His name was Walrus because he had this big mustache like this. We called him Walrus. I can't remember his real name, but he's from Kansas. And we're like, what's going on? And D. Wright comes in and he tells us, he goes, a strike package of F-16s, 32 of them, took off and did not get pre-strike refueled because we couldn't put the tankers together. And you guys are going to post-strike refuel them. If you guys don't make it to them, we're going to have the largest CSAR episode in the history of the Air Force because they will all run out of gas. And we went, wow, that was ballsy. Taking off, no pre-strike refueling. And the crazy thing was, guess what their target was? Petroleum, oil, and lubricants target. So we take off our call sign was tuna. And they actually brief us, go as far as you dare go. D. Wright says. And so being a kind of tactics guy, I went, okay, D. Wright, what do you mean by that? You know, Dan and Heidi didn't say anything. I said, whoa, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? He says, Sluggo, go as far north as you dare go. The AWACS will tell you the same thing. And I said, okay, D. Wright, is there going to be stuff around us to help us? He goes, don't know. Ask for it on the radio. I said, okay, fine. Figuring that the air battle managers and the AWACS would put everything together, I didn't think too much about it. So we get to the end of Line Pre, which was, there was Lime and one other one that went straight up the gut, right toward Baghdad. They were actually in Saudi Arabia, but they were all pointed at Baghdad. And we get to the end of Line Pre, the AWACS says, keep going north. And so we end up going about 30 to 40 miles into Iraqi airspace. All right? And of course, the first thing I asked AWACS is, where's the beer, guys? Where's the beer? And they knew exactly what I meant because all the wild weasels.
The jammers.
All the wild weasels had beer call signs, okay? Schlitz, Falstaff. And a Falstaff group ends up coming up on us, okay? The jammers, the EF-111s, were all household tools. Ratchet, wrench.
Drill,
yeah, things like that. So the night that I refueled John Boy and Carp's group, it was drill 7172 and 73. Anyway, the F-16 mission commander sees us on his radar, says turn now. And we turn to head south, and it's raining F-16s. And believe it or not, my co-pilot has this digital camera with him, his video camera with him, and videotapes it. And I've got my regular camera with me, and those are one of the pictures in the book, you know, of the 17th Fighter Squadron outside the wing. The guy that comes up to my boom has 800 pounds. So he's on fumes. They burn 125 pounds a minute with that engine, that F-100 engine. So he's got just minutes. So we cycle everybody through, give them all 1,000 pounds, cycle them all through again, and give them go-home gas. And they're all going up above us now, thanking us profusely, you know, and back up to the 40s, you know, up into the 40s. When the AWACS says, turn 270 now. And we're like going, what's coming? And they said, just turn 270 now, we'll talk you on to where we need you to go. And I'm like going, what's going on? Of course, we'd all heard about the F-14 that had gone down the night before. And so we turn as a 4-ship, 270, and the weasels keep going with us. And they said, there's a CSAR going on for a down F-14 crew. We're picking up the pilot. And somebody in the 4-ship goes, okay, what about the Rio? They said, he's unavailable. That's all they said. Unavailable, which we figured out was they've got him. So they said, you know, we're at 21,000 feet stacked up, 500 feet, you know, so we're in a block 21 to 23,000. And we're coming up there, and the weasels are starting to want gas, and they're cycling through. And finally, Dan Favorite says, okay, who are we refueling? He says, you're refueling these two A-10s, and I can't remember their call sign. Right? I think it was Sandy, but I'm not sure. It says you got to refuel these A10s. Well, here's the problem. Okay, you refuel F4s at 315 knots. You refuel A10s at 210 knots, 220 knots. So what we did was we went into a wagon wheel over the top of the area they told us to go to, so that we sent the A10s to that guy, so that he could use angular cutoff to try and stay in formation, even though we were cutting a bigger circle than he was. But at least, you know, if he came out of the circle, he could just kind of look up and go, okay, there they are, and join us. Okay? Or look down and say, okay, there they are. And it worked out. So we had Falstaff 4.3 and 4.4 on us. I've since met the pilot. Works at Lockheed in the F-35 program. Wonderful guy. But we find out they're picking up the guy. And we hear the call sign Moccasin. We're like going, who the heck is Moccasin? Who the heck is Moccasin? And then the A-10 guys go, okay, you know, we got somebody escorting Moccasin out. And we're like, who the heck is Moccasin? So Moccasin was this. Moccasin was the Pave low call sign that picked up Boots Jones, okay? And there's a famous picture of the PJ coming out, holding his M4. He slaps Boots Jones' hand, drops his gun, and the PJ throws him in the helicopter. Comes in right behind him, okay? And Boots Jones is literally laying on the floor like, what just happened to me? And the PJ comes in, closes the door, and literally off they go. And they get Boots Jones. Larry Slade was, I think, his Rio, and of course he spends time in Baghdad, but he gets released after that. All right. So this is 1991.
Yeah.
In 2004, 2005, I'm teaching at the Joint Forces Staff College back in Virginia Beach, and Brooks Boatwright, who is the commandant of the school, says, I got somebody for you to meet. And I'm like going, okay, why do they need to meet me? He goes, you need to meet him. I go, okay. Who is it? He goes, I'm not telling you. And we're having this mixer, you know, where everybody's meeting each other and everything. And he goes, I want you to go over and introduce yourself to that captain right there, okay? And you'll recognize his name as soon as you walk up to him. I walk up to him and I see it's Boots Jones. And I say, hey Boots, I'm Sluggo. I'm a KC-135 guy. And our lives are connected. He goes, how? I said, I don't know if you saw us, but you remember those 3 tankers that came and refueled the rescue package that was picking you up? He says, yeah. I told him, I was 2 of 3. And he gets a little emotional.
Oh.
You know? We're kind of swallowing a little hard, you know, and we're just kind of standing at each other, just kind of looking at each other, you know. Okay, no tears, no tears, no tears. Okay.
I won't if you won't. I won't if you won't.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Okay. And then he says to me, he goes, Sluggo, the whole time I'm here, drinks are on me. Drinks are on me. And we became good friends. But that's the story of Moccasin and the CH-53.
Yeah.
Boy, brother, I should be recording this for my podcast.
You'll get copies.
Okay. If you don't mind, then if you send me copies, I'm going to cut it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'll send you. What I'll end up doing is I'll send you a thumb drive with all of the raw footage on it.
Okay.
But where I work, they actually manufacture the laser system that removes the paint off of.
Oh yeah.
Because they used to do it by hand.
Yeah.
And
it was
if you
laborious.
went too deep, you would ruin the blade. So
Yeah.
they actually taught a camera and laser system to ablate it down
Really?
to the primer. So as soon as it recognized the color of the primer,
Yeah.
and it was perfect every time. So there you go.
I think it was Moccasin 05.
05.
Yeah. For all your listeners out there, all your subscribers, there is a book you can download, PDF. It's called On a Steel Horse I Ride. On a Steel Horse I Ride. And it's the story of AFSOC helicopters, and it's got that story of Boots Jones and Moccasin. Because obviously, you know, there's a couple people like Taco Tice that they went out and didn't get picked up.
These guys, the Philippines, just decommissioned or just took their last ones out of service this last month.
You want to know the crazy thing? We put them back in service. Did you know that? We put them back in service in Iraq.
It's the perfect
It
close
is
in.
absolutely the best close air support forward air control airplane, except for the Hog. Okay, you know, where's the Hog? The Hog's around here somewhere. Oh, the Hog was back in the other thing. And they found that, you know, you can put rockets on here, that fuel tank. You can see the guns on it. Okay, I think those are 7.62. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they look like 7.62s.
Yeah. But they found that this is, in fact, the perfect long loiter airplane. And one of my dear friends flew these things as his first assignment at UPT in Europe, okay? And said to me, he says, Mark, this was absolutely one of the funnest airplanes I ever flew.
Oh, it is so overpowered.
It is so overpowered. He says there was a flight regime you had to be careful because of the twin tails and everything. But he said, this by far was one of the funnest airplanes I ever flew. And one of the funnest missions I ever did.
And they still
has like 12 radios in here that he's talking on to people on the ground and control.
And some of the fire spotters still use these to lay down for the.
And again, it's perfect for that, okay? Because it's extremely nimble. It's overpowered like crazy, okay? And you can open up the back and put, I think, like 8 guys in the back or something like that.
It's nuts.
It's nuts, okay? And so I've seen it used for another purpose, and that is they put photographers and strap them in the back without the door, and then they'll have all kinds of airplanes come up close and they'll take pictures of them too. One of my squadron commanders at Pease flew these his first assignment. He's like, I'm going where to do what? You're going to fly bird dogs. He goes, what the heck is that? You know, but they had rocket pods on them, you know. And this was a forward air control. You know, Bat 21, the movie, is has a great story about picking up that lieutenant colonel.
Oh, you're fine. So are we.
Here's a funny story about this airplane, particularly this paint scheme. The aggressor guys hated this paint scheme, right? This is called, I think, the lizard scheme, okay? And the reason they didn't like it is because this brown and tan paint scheme that you see on the airplane gave away what they were doing. They knew if you were belly up or coming to them, right? And a very good friend of mine, okay, Rob Zettel, who flew aggressors and actually flew with the Red Eagles too. He flew MiGs. He was certified in 21 and the 23. Also flew these. He says, we hated this paint scheme because you can always tell.
Stripes on top, solid on the bottom.
Bare bottom, you always knew which way it was going. All right.
Now, whenever you went through flight training, what aircraft did you progress
through?
through?
T-38, which was similar to this, okay? Didn't have the guns, 2-seat, you know, same engine and everything like that. And it flew like this one too, you know. And looks a lot like it, except for, you know, it's 2-seater. RF4s. This has got the big motors in it though.
Yeah, so Ron Karp, his Wild Weasel is at the Museum of the Air Force.
Yeah, I know it is. It's the only one that's got the clear windscreen, if I remember right. That's how we always knew it was the wingjet, the 35th Fighter Wingjet, Tiger Fighter Wingjet, because it had the carbonate clear canopy on the nose. Oh, that's interesting. This is the Alabama Guard guys. These are the Desert Storm missions. This is Alabama Guard. What did they call themselves? They had a really funny name. They later went to C-130s. Or not, I mean KC-135. Alabama Guard guys. I refueled a lot of them too, and of course, you know that paint scheme with the tiger mouth on the front, you know, the shark mouth on the front, everything was very distinctive, and so you always knew when they were there, when they were outside your wing, because you know there it is. I think they had DA on the tails. I don't know anything about this, man. Canberra.
Crazy thing is that NASA still flies one.
Yeah, I know they do. It's with a lot longer wings.
Yep.
A lot bigger wings. But I think this one's open, if I remember right. They've got the hatch open. Yeah. Flew 135 for over 24 years. So I'm on YouTube.
Okay, so your email's on this?
And so.
Gotcha.
All right. Yeah, or better yet, just text me if you're just sitting there. Okay?
Will do.
All right, Juan. Talk to you later. You never know when you're going to do.
Right?
Yeah. All right. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, when the Vietnam War was going on, this is the airplane I wanted to fly and the mission I wanted to do.
Thud.
This is an F-4G Wild Weasel. This airplane was the Wild Weasel of Vietnam, firing the harm or the strikes and everything. They don't understand it. But this is the G model. How you can tell is these ECM blisters here. Okay, the F models didn't have them, and believe it or not, they opened this cockpit up during a cockpit.
During open cockpit stay.
And I've got all kinds of pictures of it. All right. This airplane was with the 17th Wild Weasel Squadron. The 17th Wild Weasel Squadron had this distinctive shark mouth, which is why I wanted to fly these things. Okay, JB on the tail. When I was going through Brigham Young University as a political science student, you have to do a senior paper. They said, just pick something that has something to do with politics. Well, there was a lot of politics behind the Wild Weasel mission. Can we strike? Can we not strike the SAM sites in North Vietnam? And I got to talk to a pilot, because they still had F-105s. The last reserve F-105 unit was here at Hill, and his name was Gringo Webster. He's flying airlines, but flew these two. And for 3 hours, I got to sit down with Gringo.
Wow.
And go through all the finery of F-105 Wild Weasel missions. He flew during Linebacker 1, Linebacker 2, and he got there like March of '71, and then flew, March of '72 until '73, flying Wild Weasels. It was amazing. I wish I could find it. But you see, it's got the gun on it. Okay. Yeah. The configuration that they flew was they had a tank like this. There was another pylon on the outboard that had the Shrike, like you saw back here. We were talking about back here. And then you go on this side, right? And they didn't have this other tank here. They had a rack, a launch adapter unit that carried what was called an AGM-78. The AGM-78 is the same kind of missile that the Navy. It was the same kind of missile the Navy was using. The only thing that's different is they put an anti-radiation seeker in it. Okay, it was the same missile, standard missile that was in the decks of the Navy ships, but it had been made into an anti-radiation missile. And the reason they liked it is because it had freaking long range and could carry a bigger warhead than a Shrike. And then they had the other pylon out here that had a Shrike on it. So they had two Shrikes, the standard arm, gas tank, centerline gas tank, okay, like you see on the F-105 that's up there. And That's how they went downtown, man. But
Not
this was
often you see them with the rat popped
Yeah,
out.
yeah, the ram air turbines out. The last time I was here during an open cockpit day, they had the cockpits open for this one, and it's just fascinating to be able to sit in your favorite airplane from your favorite mission from high school in the cockpit with all the gadgets in it. It was just amazing. If you want, I'll send you some of those pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here's something too. That patch right there. That was the river rats. That was started by Robin Olds and a bunch of other guys in 1967. And I am a river rat. That association is still going. What they do is they give scholarship money out to underprivileged kids, military families and everything, and it's still going. The Red River Valley Association is what they're called, but they go by the river rats. And I've got a river rat patch. And as a matter of fact, that's the patch right there, river rat.
Yeah, you wouldn't have thought that 45 years after we got out of there that I went back to Hanoi. I've been there, walked along the Red River.
Oh, I know. Seen the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we tried to
Paul Domer.
This tail number, 440, unfortunately you can't see it, you know. Boy, they've got these stacked in here really good.
Yep.
440 was a 17 Wild Weasel Squadron jet. And the cool thing was, and its association with Utah, and everything I said,
Yep.
only things that are associated with Utah, the depot for making these into Wild Weasels was here.
Was here.
Was here.
Just on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, just the other side.
This was one of the ones I built a model of when I was a youngster.
The monogram kit?
Yep.
1/48 scale? Yeah, isn't that amazing? That, believe it or not, even by today's standards, is a really good kit. A really good kit. I gotta do something with it. It lives in Ukraine, and he draws profiles like this. Of course, I color them all and everything like that for my wall pilot stuff, which you know very well.
I've got several of them on my wall in my office.
Yeah, and I'm going to send that to him. His name is Alex, and he does just amazing model, or amazing profile drawings. All right, now this one. This is the actual airplane. If I'm not mistaken, this is the actual airplane Bernie Sanders was flying when he won the Medal of Honor. Hey there, sir.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Did you guys go on the C-130?
No, not yet.
It's
We'll get
open if you want.
Okay. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Eric, this is the actual airplane he was flying. That when he got the Medal of Honor.
Major Bernie Fisher.
Yeah, Major Bernie Fisher. You know?
So this was one that the Navy used as well.
Yeah. And this was a beast, man. Because look at all the pylons on it.
Oh yeah.
And he was in special operations group, okay? But they were still using this airplane, obviously, in the early parts of Vietnam War. And the Sky Raider on the carriers, they were carrying massive amounts of ordnance. And you could see all the pylons on the wings and everything here, you know. And sometimes they'd have a centerline tank on the, you know, or tanks on here. But this thing could stay up forever. And was, I mean, look at all the pylons, man. But yeah, I mean, the famous mission that he was flying, you know, one of his guys crashes on the airfield, he lands, picks him up, throws him in the cockpit, takes off, saves his life. You know. Jump Myers, I think was the guy's name. And Bernie didn't think anything about it. You know, I got to get Jump out of there.
That's what you do.
I gotta jump out of there. He's not thinking about any metals or anything. He's just, I gotta jump out of there. And he lands and this thing, okay? And he's got the canopy back, slid back. Of course, there's an area behind it, but he literally grabs the jump and throws him, to the rudder pedals and takes off. When I was going to BYU, Bernie came down and told us the whole story. It was really amazing,
How you doing?
Guys like that don't think about metals.
No, not even in the slightest.
I gotta save my buddy, okay? And like I've said on my podcast several times, leave no one behind. We're not gonna leave anybody behind. And Bernie wasn't gonna leave jump behind, okay? Nope. Buggered up his head, throwing him on the rudder pedals, but guess what? Jump's alive.
Yes, he is.
It doesn't matter. Jump's alive. This was also the Vietnam version of the A-10.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Sandy.
Sandy.
This was the Sandy. Yeah, here's the picture of John. Fisher and Myers, here they are right here after the mission. He would come down to Brigham Young and talk to us. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the first Air Force pilot in the Vietnam War to win the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Can I talk?
We're button mics, but you're more than welcome to talk.
Behind the mannequin, there's a photograph. Supposedly was a gun camera photo of when he was actually rescuing his buddy.
Oh,
I don't know if you'll be able to get any kind of a picture of it.
We took off and landed really well. We did a good job.
There's the painting. Yeah. Yeah, that's the painting. I've seen the original of that.
Well, no,
He's flying
used to
over.
come see us before he died.
Yeah.
And that actually was a gun camera photo from another plane. Actually took that. But I wasn't sure if you could talk if you were taking a video or something.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good one. You guys want to go on to see what's
Well, brother, we still got one more gallery to walk through.
you're on a roll.
A friend of mine, his brother just bought one of these flyable. They're putting it back together.
Those
That airplane's noisier than heck.
those radials, just so much maintenance, so many moving parts.
T-28 Trojan. So noisy.
Thanks for sticking around to the end. I appreciate all of the views, your comments, likes, the returning subscribers, and especially when someone has a personal connection to the aircraft and leaves a comment about it. I'd like to also again thank Mark Hasara for his guiding us around the museum, and to the Hill Aerospace Museum for maintaining this collection with such great care.